डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी.
Welcome to Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. In today's sessions, we are going to discuss another advanced point of advanced Java, and that advanced point is Java naming and directory interface. Now, what is JNDI? Why do we need it? That is what we are going to discuss. But before that, we need to know the requirement behind JNDI. Why JNDI was evolved? What is the reason behind it? So, let us discuss it first. So, sometimes what happens whenever we are developing or build an applications, at that time we need, once it is built and ready to execute, but sometimes certain application requires another third party controls or third party resource or service to complete its execution. So, there are naming and directory services which binds the name to an object of our requirement, that is the object which we need to complete the execution of our already built up application. So, there is a, we can say, a naming and directory services available which maps the name of object, and that object that we can find it out through the directory or registry, and we can use it to complete our execution. So, there is a naming service. So, what is naming service? Generally, naming service it is a set of name to object binding. It is generally, we can say, it maps, it helps the developer to store and retrieve the named objects from the naming or registry. At the same time, there is a directory service. So, what is directory service? So, directory service is simply, we can say, it is a superset of naming services which is having a directory kind of architecture that helps us to find out the object, or we can say object of our interest for the completion of execution of our application. Now, let us discuss certain other related, we can say, concepts. They are like DNS. So, what is DNS? So, DNS is a domain name service. So, generally it is used to simplify the users identification for a particular host or system. Let us say, we can say any, or we can say IP address even. We can identify the IP address through the user friendly names. Let us have www.baou.edu.in. This is what we can say, it is a Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University's address. But generally it is as we are reading it, it is very easy for users to remember it, but if sometimes it is very difficult to remember the IP address, because IP address is what consisting of the numerical figures. Okay. So, DNS maps the user friendly names to the computer friendly IP addresses. At the same time, LDAP is there, lightweight directory access protocol. What it does? It is a hierarchical structure information about users, networks or systems, or we can say over networks through URL and other attributes of the particular protocol. At the same time, there is a national network information system provides access to files or application resources through ID and we can say password. At the same time, there is a, we can say, so after discussing, we can say DNS, LDAP, network information system. So, what is common? The common thing is naming service. They all are having a common naming service to a particular object. So, using that naming service, we can access the required objects. So, apart from that, we can say, what is that naming service and how do we get it? How do we access such kind of services from the, we can say, available third party resources? So, there are number of, we can say, third party vendors available in the market that develops such kind of services. We can manipulate it and we can access it. Okay. So, let us discuss it, the difference between these naming services, because there are number of vendors and each and every vendor has their own naming convention for their services. So, let us have a view on such kind of services. A DNS we already know, but DNS naming convention is what? The naming convention is, we can say, dot. So, DNS uses the dot notations like www.baou.edu.in. So, DNS uses the dot notations as a naming conventions. At the same time, LDIP uses a comma and key value pairs to identify its resources, or we can say naming services. See here, the I is a key and is equal to India. The I is a key, India is a value. So first we can say the service is I and India is separated by comma, then G Gujarat, B BAU, list goes on. So what we can say that the DLDAP service uses the comma and key value pair for its services. At the same time DOS, we already know what is the disk operating system, and we have used we can say commands to work with it. So DOS generally uses slashes, colons and periods for its naming convention. At the same time Unix also uses this slash for its naming convention. So these are we can say few examples to understand the naming convention that this third party vendors are uses for their objects. So these naming and directory services are implemented by, as we said that these all are naming and directory services offered by different vendors, third party vendors. So suppose now let us assume that our Java application needs to access this third party service in terms of naming and directory service developed by these unknown vendors. So what we need to do? So what we have to do? Our Java application has to use its API. So we can say application becomes vendor specified because the API and the protocols developed by these third party vendors. So we have our Java application has to comply with its API and protocols. So it would be a vendor specific. Then while deploying we need to know about the vendors and its service API as well. At the same time, if we want to migrate our service or we can say applications from one vendor to another vendor, we need to change the code base of our application. So what happens? So by observing these three we can say things, we can say that they are there is a dependency on the vendors. As we are developing a Java applications, and if we have to depend on a third party for the executions or the successful execution of our application, then it would not be we can say better idea or we can say a good way to build application, because dependency should not be there. So there should be a mechanism through which the Java application can access the underlying naming and directory service irrespective of vendor. So the such solutions was delivered by Sun, okay, in terms of JNDI specification. So what JNDI is? So simply JNDI is a API which provides the uniform standards to access any naming or directory service into the application. So the problems we have discussed, that if we are using third party naming and directory service, then our application becomes vendor specific, as we have discussed. So to overcome all such problems, the JNDI was introduced by Sun, and through which it helps us to access this third party naming and directory service irrespective of vendor, okay, and our application will work smoothly without any problem. Note that JNDI is an interface, it is not an implementation. So be careful that JNDI is only an interface, it is not an implementation. Now what the JNDI does, how it helps? The JNDI is we can say a directory service, naming and directory service. So directory service is simply a naming service plus objects containing attributes. Objects containing attributes, there may be objects and the objects may have attributes. If you are talking about printer, the printer is an object. So objects may have attributes like colors, speed of a printer, like that. Okay, so if we have to define directory service, that is naming service plus objects containing attributes. Now the most important part, after we can say learning the concept of JNDI, why JNDI? So we discussed that JNDI is very important for the we can say accessing the vendor independent naming and directory service of the objects. So the architecture of JNDI is consisting of 3 or 4 layers, depends, okay. Here we have discussed this kind of architectures for JNDI. At the first stage there is a application, Java application, second is JNDI API, third one is we can say a JNDI SPI. SPI stands for software specification or service provider interface, we can say. It is simply a service provider interface, we will talk it like that. Okay. So how this architecture helps us, how this architecture is going to work. So now let us try to understand through the example. Suppose we have a Java applications, we want to access a vendor specific, any vendor developed JNDI or we can say naming and directory service. So what it will help, how it is going to help us, how do we help access such service, underlying service through Java application. So what will the functions of JNDI architecture is? So JNDI architecture, as the figure depicts, it sits between the Java application and JNDI SPI. So, it is an abstract layer, we can say that it is an abstraction between the Java application and JNDI specification, or we can say a service provider interface through which we can access the underlying implementation of vendor specific directory naming and directory service. So, now start to execute the flow. So, once a Java application wants to execute or wants to implement a service, naming service, so what it will do first, the JNDI Java application will first, a client will fire a query. So, upon that JNDI API's implementation is there. The what the JNDI API will do, that this layer what will happen, the request goes to the JNDI API, JNDI API will parse the request, it converts into the JNDI format, that means the Java application uses JNDI API. In short, we have to say, then we can say that Java application uses JNDI API to form the request. Then after the request goes to the JNDI service provider interface. So, the service provider interface is the, we can say, layer which implements this all vendor specific service naming and directory interface, because this is the implementers, these all are the implementers. Okay, SPI stands for service provider interface. The service provider interface indicates that it is a implementer, there is a implementer for LDAP, there is a implementer for DNS, NIS, NDS, RMI, Corba, list goes on. So, there are, we can say, implementers, SPI implementers for different naming and directory services. So, once again come to the point, Java application using the JNDI API sends the request, that means the Java request will be in the format of JNDI API. So, that request goes to the, we can say, JNDI SPI. Once JNDI SPI fetches the request from JNDI API, it translates the request. It translates the request that is understood by the underlying implementers of a particular naming and directory services. After translating the request based on a particular naming and directory services, it interacts, SPI interacts with the underlying requested registry, and then after processes the request, forms the response, collects the response, forms the response back in the format that JNDI API understands, sends the response back to the JNDI API. Once again JNDI API sends the response back to the Java application. So, irrespective of the vendors, there is a JNDI SPI service provider implementers which makes the programmer's task easy. Programmer does not need to know that what kind of implementers it has to use, it simply wants to bind the data source that it wants to access. She or she wants to access whatever the database or underlying resource he or she wants to access. So, JNDI provides very useful and we can say efficient manners to access the underlying naming and directory object, naming and directory service through the objects. So, the architectures we have discussed, it is discussed again over here, that it is a standard abstraction which allows any Java applications to access, interact with the vendor implemented naming and directory service. Some service providers like LDAP, RMA, DNS are included with JDK. Okay. Now, after learning the architecture, we need to know that how do we implement JNDI in Java applications. So, generally the JNDI comes with SDK, okay, of JDK we can say. It is in the as Java as is standard, it is included in the Java standard edition. So, it comes with the JDK as we are downloading JDK and installing in our system, it comes with the JDK. So, we can use it directly, we does not need extra we can say Java files or any other things to be imported, included in the libraries. So, certain service providers like RMI, DNS, LDAP is already there that we can directly access to the inbuilt JDK, but sir, if you want other services, then that you need to import from the other vendors. Now, after learning the concepts of JNDI, its architecture, its working environment, there are two main pillars of working of JNDI. They are context and initial context. So, what this context is and what is initial context? So, simply context is a we can say set of bindings of name and object. Context is an interface which is having a collection of the objects with a particular name. Set of name to object bindings. Context represents a set of bindings within a naming service. A context may associate, that one context may be associated with another context, or we can say subcontext, and each and every naming service has an access point, and that access point here it is known as initial context. So, once we have a naming service, we can access this naming service with the initial context. So, we need context as well as initial context to access a naming service associated with a directory service. So, the question comes, how do we get this initial context? So, generally in the initial context we will retrieve through using its object through a constructor. We will define the constructor, we will invoke the constructor and get the instance of the initial context, and using that we can access the services. Now, after learning the understanding the context and initial context, it is time to discuss the JNDI API. As we already talked that JNDI comes in the Java Standard Edition with a JDK. So, what are the important package and classes that we can use or include in our Java application? So, generally the most two important package is javax.naming.context and second one is javax.naming.initial context. This two package is very important for the execution of, we can say, JNDI application. Apart from that, there are other packages, javax.naming, javax.naming.directory, javax.naming.event, naming.idap, ldap, javax.naming.spi. SPI, as we already discussed, it is the service provider implementations of a particular service, so that we can access it directly. So, let us have a look on the first package, javax.naming.context. As we already discussed in the previous slide, that is context is an interface. Okay? So, simply it is interface given under JNDI specification. It is having number of methods, as we talked that interface. So, interface is having number of methods, and the methods are like, as we need to register a object name with a particular object, that means we need a bind method, we need a rebind method, we need a unbind method, or sometimes to list the bindings. So, these are the methods supported by the context interface for a naming and object communication. Apart from that, we can say this interface should be implemented by the vendors. Okay, now as we have discussed, there are number of vendors for the naming and directory services. So, vendors who wants to provide their service to the world of the developers of the developer community, they have to implement this interface. Okay, they have to need this implement this interface to provide the service to the developers community. And second package is the javax.naming.initial context. As we said that initial context is an abstract class, okay, implementing context interface, it implements context interface. So, it is having a wrapper instance of a one instance of the context implementer class, and other we can say packages are there which having their own services, like directory provides directory services, naming provides the naming conventions, accessing naming conventions, LDAP is lightweight directory access protocol service we can access, SPI allows us to access the registry from which we can access the objects of a specified name. Okay, now JNDI example. Now it is time, after learning the JNDI, why JNDI, its architecture, its functionality, naming service, directory service, and the context and initial context, it is time to build. Apart from that, we have discussed the packages, JNDI API. We can develop, we can write a Java application, so that we can better understand how JNDI works. Once it is understood by architecture and concepts, it will be better to understand through examples. So, let us proceed towards the example. Okay. So, the examples that we are going to discuss is consisting of, we can say, simple class of JNDI and simple, we can say, bindings of data source. We are binding, we are connecting the database with our application, and we are finding the resource through the JNDI API. We are looking up the data source, most important thing is data source, underlying data source, through lookup method of the JNDI API. So, our application uses one table student, okay, in a MySQL database. We have a table student defined already in the database, where we use and we will fire a query on these tables to retrieve the records. Okay. Now, the another concept to understand is javax.sql.data source. So this class is very important. It's a Java object. Data source is a Java object which represents a factory of connections. That means connection pool. We can say connection pool. So data source represents a connection pool. So we can establish a number of connection as and when required. Okay. Physical with the physical data source. Data source is preferred over driver manager class. As we already discussed JDBC, in JDBC we were using the driver manager class to get the connections, but it is preferable over data source is preferable over driver manager class. Data source interface is implemented by driver vendors, those who wants to provide the services of underlying database. Data source is usually configured and managed by the application server. Advantage, the most important advantage is that properties can be modified as and when required of the data source. Suppose you are migrating from one server to another server, then you only need to change the property of the server, you doesn't need to change the code of a program. So data source is more effective than the, we can say, driver manager class. Now our application, apart from that, our application most important thing is configuring the context. So context is very important. Okay, we have to configure the data source in our context file. So what this context file is? To configure the JNDI data source in a Tomcats by adding a declarations to our, for our resource to our context in context.xml file. So context.xml file is very important, in which we will define and where it resides. So context.xml file can be either in the config directory, in the, we can say, localhost under that, or even you can say you can keep it under the meta-inf directory of web along with the web-inf. So we are keeping it under the, in our example we are using meta-inf directory, under that we are keeping context.xml. Now what the context.xml is? So generally context.xml we will write, it is having a main tag context, okay, it ends here, and then after under it is having attributes like cross context is equal to true, that we are going to see. Then another sub attribute, as another sub tag is watched resource, that means on where once the application starts, then it will first watch the resource. In which resource it will look for? It will look for the web.xml, our deployment descriptor file, in which we have defined the data source as well, okay, for mapping, naming convention, naming service. Okay, under that we are defining the resource tag, that is very important. Okay, so under the resource tag what we are writing, the first attribute is name. So what this name indicates? It indicates the JDBC/test JNDI. So JDBC is a global JNDI. JDBC is a global JNDI for our Java applications. So we are using JNDI as a global JNDI. Under that we are looking for the naming service for our program is test JNDI, that we are going to define. So once our program will start, it will try to look for test JNDI in a global JNDI naming and directory service. So this is what the most important part of our application is in JNDI. Authentication is, we can say, in a container up to container level. Type is javax.sql.data source, as we are using data source. So its type is, we have to mention that, we can say data source we are using. Maximum active, another attribute is there, that means it indicates 100. What does it mean? Max active, that means at a time you can have maximum 100 connection, 100 database connections you can allow. Okay, more than that, okay, it is allowed, but up to maximum you can allow 100. Maximum idle is equal to 30, that means maximum idle connections can be 30. It will be at any time, it would be 30. Whether it is working or not, that doesn't matter, but at a time there would be a 30 maximum connection that will be in idle state. Wait time for the connections, if there is no connection with database, then maximum wait time would be 10 minutes. Default is the 10 seconds. Default is 10 seconds, but here we are specifying 30 seconds. Default is 30 seconds, we are specifying 10 seconds. Username, passwords is okay. Then after we are specifying the driver class com.mysql JDBC driver. URL is, as we already know, that BAOU is the database name that we will specify, as we already discussed in JDBC. But important thing is the resource name and JDBC. The next is servlet file. Through servlet file we will access this mapping, and under that we have only things that we need to focus is the java:/environment variable. That means it's a utility context, and every resource has its own context populated with the sources such as data source EJB. you need to be very careful and understand these things, okay, through which the environments would be retrieved and it would be manipulated to access the JNDI service. Okay. The last is the deployment descriptor, and through which we have already defined this JDBC/JNDI API, that is a resource reference name that we have already defined a resource in a context.xml file. So, this is what it is going to look for. Resource type is javax.sql.resource data source, and authentication is container level. So, once we will start application, it will look for this registered naming services through the data source using the JDBC global naming service, under that JTest JNDI. Execution will look like this. Web client fires a request to servlet through request URL. Servlet get methods looks for using JNDI JDBC resource, JDBC test JNDI in global JNDI. That is what we have seen, like this :java:/comp/env. This is a global JNDI, and stores it in a data source object. Using these objects, it creates a connection and executes SQL statements and response with the query. So, now let us have a look in the execution. We will discuss it through program, and you can see how it executes and responds back to the client. Let us look towards the application. So, first of all, we will start a MySQL database. As we have our database connections, we have created a database. You can visualize a BAOU, Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University short form. We have a BAOU database. Under that we have created a student database, and under table, and under student table we have 4 records. Okay, generally 2 records but duplicated, so total 4 records are there, and we are going to fetch it through our JNDI application. So, once we have a database and table starts, we have already deployed the application in a Tomcat server. If you want to see, you can see. See here, we have a one index.jsp file, that is the starting point. Simply we are asking for the username, but we are not verifying username, only we are finding the action employee.do. Then after, under the web-inf, we have a web.xml deployment descriptor. See here, as we have discussed in the last slide. Okay. Then after, we have a class, that is what JNDI implementation. So, in this class we are implementing this JNDI. See here, environment context is a context instance, and it is initialized with the initial context. And using this initial context, environment context, we are using lookup method to look for this global JNDI, java::computer/env. Once the object naming convention would found, we can establish the connection with a data source using this data source. Okay. So, once the lookup method returns the object naming service, we can use this DS data source instance to establish the connection. Using connection, we can create statement. Using this statement, we can fire the query on a student table. And once we have our data, we can traverse through a while loop and display the records like get integer and get string, as we have 2 records, student ID and student name. So, we are populating it through the database. So, this is what a simple JDBC kind of applications, but having a same concept, but using the JNDI. We are using the context and initial context, and then after using the lookup, and lookup will return us the data source instance defined in the web.xml and the context file. Context file reside here, as I told you that it is in the meta-inf file. See here, this is a context file, it resides in the meta-inf directory. Under that we have just mentioned watchdog resource, web.xml, test.jni as a name of the resource, type is SQL data source, and we have provided another parameters as required. Class is the JDBC driver, MySQL, and database is BAOU. So, once it is defined, compile this class, and then after we will execute. So, once we execute, it will start to look for the action. So, employee action will be fired, and once it matches, it will call this hello JNDI class file, and under that it will try to look for this global JNDI environment defined. So it will have a context, so it will find it, yes, it is already there, so it will return the resource and display the records. So now let us start our Tomcat server and we will execute it. Server is started. You have to configure the Tomcat server before executing this, so because it will always ask for the ID and passwords. So we have kept is BAOU as a username and password is also the same. You can change it in a users XML file. So our file is, you can say JNDI. Okay, so execute it. So as I already told you that index is simple file, it asks for the username, so we will pass a username. Any name you can pass, but because we are not comparing it, so you can pass it like a Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Now click on login. So it will establish the connections with database using the data source of JNDI and fetches the account, displays is on the screen. So this is what all about a JNDI execution. So JNDI provides us a wonderful functionality, a vendor independent naming and this directory service through which we can apply, we can use this API supported by JNDI and access the services of naming which is binding the objects irrespective of underlying vendors. So I hope that this session has cleared your concept regarding the JNDI and its applicability in the Java environment. So after discussing and learning the implementation of JNDI in a Java programs, I hope that you might have cleared your concepts regarding JNDI. So generally JNDI API is a J2W API for naming and directory service. Naming and directory service helps the Java programmers to identify, access the services of underlying registered vendors without fearing or without, we can say, thinking about the API and protocols they are implementing. So JNDI simply makes very easy for the programmers to access the underlying resource and naming and directory service without any problem. Thank you.